Good morning. Welcome to Safety Saturdays, everyone. I'm Autumn Barbado. I am the Community Engagement Liaison with the Denellen Department of Emergency Management. And thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you're ready to digest a lot of really excellent information regarding what we've referred to as the file of life, and what you may later hear us refer to as the All About Me file. But we'll be explaining that further as we go along. With us today, we have the good fortune of having Chief Best, Chief of the Denellen Rescue Squad, who'll be our presenter for the day. Welcome, Chief Best.
Good to be here.
So glad to have you with us. Also in the room is Director Homer Mosley, Director of the Office of Emergency Management, Deputy Bill Carlson, and Joe Cummins, a member of our CERT team. Gigi Mosley, also a member of the CERT team. And I'm thankful to have everyone joining in today. And hopefully they'll all have an opportunity to contribute to the conversation a little later on. Before we get to formally introducing Chief Best, I just want to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. So what you may notice if you are or not familiar with Zoom is a taskbar, yes, towards the bottom of your screen. It may not exactly display this way for you, but these are some of the primary icons indicating some of the controls you may be interested in. We do ask that you mute your lines during the presentation. We will have an opportunity for questions and answers towards the end, and we do look forward to engaging with you. The other thing that you may want to be aware of is that we do have a chat feature, and you'll see that indicated here. We've loaded some information, some content, a few files that you may find of interest related to our topic today. So feel free to take advantage of that throughout the session. Okay, moving forward. I'm going to turn the conversation over now to Director Mosley, who will introduce our guest speaker for the day. Director Mosley.
Good morning, community, and welcome to Safety Saturdays. As Autumn mentioned, I am Homer Mosley and the Director and Coordinator of the Office of Emergency Management in Denellen. Okay, Office of Emergency Management is abbreviated OEM, and I am both proud and honored to serve Denellen in this capacity. I was appointed by Mayor Jason Salento for a second 3-year term. I'm also a proud volunteer member of the Denellen CERT, which stands for Community Emergency Response Team. The OEM works closely with our town's emergency service providers, the police, the fire department, the rescue squad, and the Department of Public Works, DPW, when responding to emergencies and disasters. OEM is also fortunate to have a dedicated group of ordinary citizens to assist in our protective and response efforts by being trained and volunteering as CERT members. The Office of Emergency Management is not only responsible for coordination resources and our town's response to emergency and disasters, rather they be natural, man-made, or technological, but also to make our town more resilient by educating and providing the knowledge and tools so that the citizens can protect themselves. Safety Saturdays is just one activity to educate the public about available protective measures. And now I'd like to introduce to you our guest speaker. I'm going to tell you a little bit about his background. Okay, today's presenter, of course, again, is Chief Jeff Best. He's the chief of the Denellen Rescue Squad. He joined the rescue squad in 1999. He became an EMT in 2001. Chief officer for more than 10 years. And also Denellen's 911 response. And to give you a couple examples of things that he's been involved with Liberty State Park, Weehawken, and he was also a ground zero responder. So we thank you, Jeff, for your response to that. He was chief during the state's COVID response, and I worked very closely with Jeff in terms of getting Pete protective equipment to the citizens, including we had a vaccination clinic. And Jeff worked for Verizon's 911 center for 10 years, and I was not aware of that. But Jeff is very active. He's not only the chief, but you'll see Jeff often go into the scene of various disasters. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Jeff Best.
Thank you, Director Mosley. So Director Mosley ended up getting the job of being the director of OEM when just as COVID started, and it was welcome to the firing line. A friend of mine was a dispatcher when the Baltimore Bridge collapsed. She was there 1:30 in the morning at work. And what happened is they had 90 seconds between the time that they were told that something was wrong and when the bridge went down. When an emergency strikes, you have seconds to respond. You don't have time to think, plan out, do anything. You have to be able to just react. And that's going to be very important to what we're doing here. We have the need for speed. Now, 90% of the calls that we take are non-life threatening. It's okay if we take a little bit more time with you at wherever you are and we get you ready to go to a hospital. But about 10% of those calls that we go to are actually serious, critical, life-threatening calls. And time makes a very, very large difference here in the not only on patient survivability, but patient outcomes. Now, we end up with several problems when we're dealing with patients in their homes or wherever we encounter them. The first one, which is huge right now, is language. We are an extremely multicultural society. People are immigrants from just about everywhere on the planet, and they bring their own languages with them. This is one of the primary thoughts that everyone has been expressing is, well, emergency responders just need to learn how to speak everyone's language. That's not possible. So to give two examples, during COVID, I had a Spanish-speaking family who couldn't understand what I was saying. And the mother was very ill. The only person in the family that could speak and communicate between myself and the family was a 10-year-old child. I had to use a 10-year-old child to explain to mom that she was critical and she might die. That's not something I ever wanted to do. I watched this little boy as he tried to be the brave man of the house and explain everything to mom, but his little lip was quivering. The next issue that we had, next example of one, is we had a patient from Georgia, and I mean the country, not the state. She could not speak a word of our language. So we brought her to a hospital. And in the hospital, they have basic questions that we need answered in order to begin treatment, and no one could speak the language. They brought on a language line. They have a computer system where they can get translators in there, and no one on the language line could understand there was a country called Georgia. They gave her a Jordanian translator who only spoke Arabic. Don't count on us being able to get our hands on translators. There's certain information that we are going to need, and we need to have it in a way that we can transmit this information to the hospital and to the doctors. We were counting on the hospital being able to handle this. One of the other complex issues that we deal with is we have a very mobile society. People move around a lot, they travel great distances, and you cannot expect that when we encounter you, when you need medical assistance, that you're going to be around your home, around your family, or the community that knows you. We live in a very small community here, 1 mile square town, and most of us know each other. And I know our regular patients that we go to on a normal basis. I have a good idea of some of their health problems. I can remember being on the calls with them previously, and that's very helpful. But the majority of the medical calls that we get are not in someone's home. So they're far away from the information. They're far away from the family members that have information. A lot of times we have no one that we can contact from their family to even let them know that there's a problem. So this leads to very difficult problems. Like if we find you unresponsive, unconscious, unable to talk to us at all, we're left guessing as to what your medical conditions might be, what your medical problems might be, what medications you might be on, what you're even allergic to. And it's something that we all know in emergency services, but the general public doesn't know. What we end up having to do there is we're looking through people's pockets and wallets and hoping that we can find any piece of information that's going to help us put this puzzle together of what's going on. This is not the most efficient way to do things. It causes severe delays. And even there, we're just hoping we can find anything. Sometimes even we're hoping we can find a name. The other issue that's going on, and this is a large one, is that we have a greatly aging society. Back in the 1980s, when we were looking at a patient's medications, the average patient that we had a single medication. And by this, I mean anyone who was under 30 years old generally wasn't on any medications. Anyone who was between 30 and 50 may have had one. Anyone who was 50 to 80 years old had two. Today, you can encounter a 12-year-old that's on 5 medications. And they're not the simple things where we all learn the names of these medications. These are medications that's names are 37 characters long. When you're looking at the elderly, and we can debate what considered elderly. I think I'm getting there. Now you're looking at 15 to 20 medications and a list that's sometimes longer than your arm, sometimes 3 pages of them. This is not, our problem with this is we go to a patient's house or where we find them. We don't have any idea what medications they might be on in order to relay that information to the hospital. If we're in your house and you can't provide that information, we're going around with family members hunting down where the pill bottles might be so we can copy down what you're on. Or it's what we refer to as being nightstand detectives. We try to figure out what your medical conditions are by what pill bottles. And the one thing that people do a lot is they hand us a pill sorter. And all of the older people have these pill sorters. Well, these are random looking pills, and no, we don't have any idea what they are. If it's not in the bottle labeled with its name, we have no idea what this is. So the pill sorters, while they're wonderfully convenient, they don't help in an emergency situation. So these kind of things lead to massive delays as we're trying to find the information so that we can get the patient to a hospital and to care. All right, so what happens with these delays? Well, the delays bring us some nasty consequences sometimes, especially in the critical patients. When we're dealing with someone who's having a stroke, the phrase that we're all taught is time is brain. By this, we mean from the time of you having a stroke to the time of treatment, it is extremely important that we shorten that as much as we can. The more time it takes us to get you to treatment, the more of an impact that's going to have on a patient. Sometimes we're talking about the difference between life and death. Sometimes we're talking about just how much damage is going to be done and how much you're going to be able to function afterwards. Strokes are one of those times where we're going to be in that house quickly, not taking time to worry about whether or not we've comfortably packed everything. We're just going to move fast because we know we're fighting for your life at that moment. The other thing where you can bring this in is when we're dealing with someone under severe trauma. When you have someone who is critically injured, there's another thing that we refer to as the golden hour. In the golden hour, this is talking about this is the time between when you are injured and when you are in surgery in the trauma center. That window is so narrow, it seems like an hour is a long period of time. When you're sitting and talking like this, it seems like forever. But the golden hour, when we're looking at emergency response, you get hurt, ambulance comes, we get you packaged into the ambulance, and yes, we use the word package. I'm sorry, we sound like we're UPS here. We get to the hospital, we transfer care to the staff there, and the staff does their assessment, and then they get you ready for surgery. That's where we have this hour period of time. After this hour is passed, the patient's survivability drops dramatically. It's well documented. We all know it in emergency medicine. We're all very well aware that we have an hour to complete every possible task. And while we're trying to get this information that we need, the big information, let's talk about what we actually need. I need to know what medications you're on, what your past medical history is, and what you're allergic to. I don't need to know what diseases your grandfather might have had or anything like that. It's not the family history, but you're specific. The allergies to medications, this is critical because we don't know what we can give you. We don't know what the hospital can give you. Is this going to make your condition worse if you're allergic to a medication? Do we have to use a different one that you're not allergic to? What medical problems you have? Well, these are all going to tell us what to expect. If a person has had multiple heart attacks, well, they're at a great risk of heart attack. We know that. If a person's had multiple strokes, maybe the deficits that we're seeing, maybe the places where we're seeing them slurring their speech or not able to use their right arm as well as their left, maybe that's previous in the response, that's from a previous stroke. And we need to know that. We need to ask these kinds of questions. All of these things are clues to help us know what's going on. If we have a patient who's complaining about pain all over their body, well, finding out that they have sickle cell anemia explains a lot. These are all very important things that we need to know. And we need to be able to convey this to the hospital. So how do we deal with this? Well, back in the 80s and 90s, we had this real wonderful idea. It was called the file of life. And what we would do with the file of life is everyone would fill out this information and they put it in a magnet envelope on their refrigerator. Or sometimes there was a bottle that was kept inside of their refrigerator. And this made wonderful sense and it helped a lot at the time, and it was better than anything that we had. But the problem is, as I said before, most of our encounters with people where they need medical assistance, they're not at their homes. So it doesn't do any good that it's sitting back at your house while you're on vacation or you're out to the grocery store. Now what do we do? I don't know where you live. I'm not sending somebody out to your house to go explore that, to break into your house. I'm not sending a cop over there to go search your house and tell me if there's if there's this information on your refrigerator. I still need to get it. So we've done an upgrade to this. And we here in Denellen are rather fortunate because in our town, they've already put together a form with most of what with everything that we need to know. It's called All About Me. You can be found on our town's website. Print out a copy yourself, or we have some here at Borough Hall. This has you put down the information about your name, your address, emergency contact information, your past medical history, your allergies to medications. And yes, sometimes we want food allergies as well. Like for instance, if you're allergic to shellfish, that means you have an iodine allergy. And we know that if we hear that it's shellfish, we know that we can't use iodine as a contrast dye in the hospital. And what medications you're on. And what medications you're on is critical to us because we need to know what kind of medical interactions you're going to have. If you're a trauma victim, if you've fallen, we need to know if you're on blood thinners, because a person on blood thinners is going to be much more difficult for them to clot, and internal bleeding is a lot more serious for them than for other people. If you're on aspirin, we have a limited amount of aspirin that we can give to someone if they're having chest pains. Our number is 325 milligrams per day. So I need to know if your doctor has prescribed one baby aspirin per day, which is 81 milligrams. And I can give up to 325 within a 24-hour period. Did you take yours late last night and early this morning, in which case they're both within the 24-hour period? These are important pieces of information for us. So on these file of lives, what we ask people to do, and this is part of the chain of survival for yourself. This is where you are responsible and where you can do something to help us help you. We ask that people have multiple copies of this, that you keep one on you. If I find you in a motor vehicle accident and you can't talk to me, maybe the person driving the car is an Uber driver. They don't know a thing about you other than where they picked you up. Keep it in your wallet. Keep it in your purse. Keep it with you so that we can find this information and we can use it. In your homes. especially for our elderly patients. I would prefer to be able to go in there and grab a sheet of paper, grab that sheet of paper and leave, than have to spend 20, 30 minutes in your house trying to copy down all of these long medications and trying to find your medication bottles. Because we're going to miss some. We want it to be grab and go. Because like we said before, time is brain, and we have a golden hour that we're working with in these critical calls. Make sure that the information is legible. I need to be able to read it. I understand the old joke about doctors' handwritings, and yes, that doesn't mean that just because doctors have bad handwriting, they can read everyone else's. So please keep it in a form that we can read it, typed up. However you can do this, it's only going to help us. We want to know the dosages that you have. It's not necessarily critical to us on the ambulance, but that is good information for the hospital to make sure that they have. The other thing, which is a little bit controversial, is please, if you can, have it in English. I don't read other languages, and I can't always guarantee that I'm going to be able to find someone who can. The easier we have, the easier it is for us to communicate this information, the easier it is for people to treat your illness or your injury. Okay. As I said before, it's going to have your medications, your allergies, and your past medical history. We'd ask people to have multiple copies of it, especially at your house. So no one wants to give away their only list of all their medications. Yes, in those situations, we'll take those. We'll take a picture of it with the iPad that we carry with us, and we'll work with that. But it's so much easier to be able to hand a copy to the nurse. The nurse at the hospital does not get our pictures. Systems just aren't set up to do that.
Thank you, Chief Best. That was excellent information. If you have any additional comments or any parting thoughts that you'd like to mention now, but I think that was pretty substantial. A lot to digest and consider, but definitely doable. Thank you for communicating the importance of having this information readily available so that, as you mentioned, we're able to help you do your job within a very narrow window of time when lives are at stake.
So we're a local rescue squad. Everyone on our department is a volunteer, and we're here to help our neighbors. We're going to run into you at the grocery store. We're going to run into you at our convenience store in the middle of town. We're going to see you at events. We know you and we care. And we can take a lot of time and get to know you and talk with you. And we really enjoy doing this. This is about neighbors helping neighbors, what we do. But there's also times when we know that we are racing a clock. And I'd like to sit down with you, and I'd like to talk with you. Everyone in town knows I talk too much. Lots of chuckles going around the room for that one. But when we need to move, we're going to seem like we are being very rude. We're going to be just the facts. We need this information. We need it now. We need to get out that door, and no delay whatsoever. And it's for the same exact reason. We do this because we care about our neighbors, and we're fighting for their life. So their lives are extremely important to us, and we are going to do everything that we possibly can. So when we're asking you to help us help you, we mean it. We want you to be around the town. We want to see you again. We want to run into you in the grocery store. We want to hear the story of your kids, your grandkids. And we don't ever want to have a family member look at us and say, you failed to save my beloved mother, child, friend. We don't want that. That guts us because they're also our friends.
So well said. We actually do have a slide up now about how our residents are able to obtain the All About Me files. Deputy Carlson, did you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes. Hi, this is Bill Carlson. You can get this All About Me. You can come in and get a physical copy in the Borough Hall at 355 North Avenue. It's available in English and Spanish. You can download it from the borough's website, and you can it's posted in the chat as well. A link is posted in the chat. We also encourage you to investigate a medical ID feature in the health app on iPhone. And I just learned about that last night, and I'm going to be doing it for myself. And correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that you can put information in there that can be accessed by a healthcare provider, even if you're unable to unlock your phone.
Yes.
Okay.
Unlocking people's phones to try to find contact information. Obviously, it doesn't work if they can't answer us. So that's been a struggle and a problem. So this is a feature on those phones that allows us to look at this emergency information, even though your phone is locked.
Excellent. I learned something, and I'm happy that I learned it. We, as the OEM, will be making sure that we have these forms when we appear at community events. You'll often see us at a table, and maybe you're wondering, what does OEM do? And you can come over and get a form, and that's one of the things that we do, is help you to be safer and help our squad to serve you. You can also reach out to our office, our coordinator, Homer Mosley, whose contact information is on the screen for you right now. So if you have any questions about that, if you have, Chief Best emphasized that the emergency responders do not automatically learn all the languages of the residents of the borough. And we have new languages appearing all the time. So if you have some difficulty in getting this form filled out in English, please reach out. Please reach out to us, and we'll give you the help that you need. We also don't speak all the languages, but we will do what we have to do so that when you're done with this form, the emergency responders will be able to help.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now we are approaching probably one of the most exciting aspects of our session, the event you've all been waiting for. So it's time for you to engage. It's audience participation, but don't be alarmed. It may sound scary, but we're really not going to put you on the spot. What we really want to do is to be sure that you've been able to consume the information that was provided, that you find it relevant and understandable. And this is an opportunity for you. Primarily, it's up to you whether you want to react. You can unmute and respond if you like, but it's just enough that you're able to actually take a look at this question and for yourself understand what the correct response would be. So I'm just going to read this off a little bit. And I think this will be pretty easy. We try to make it not a very high hurdle for you to negotiate. So the file of life is a metal file cabinet with folders containing my bucket list magazine clippings and tax documents. B, a Google folder with all of my favorite selfies. C, a playlist with various renditions of Frank Sinatra's That's Life. D, also known as All About Me, contains current medical information, including info on allergies, medications, contact persons, and more, and should be easily accessible to first responders. Or E, all of the above and none of the above. So I'm hoping that we've made it relatively easy for you to select the correct answer. Let's go to question 2. I can get the All About Me or similar file of life document at A, Borough Hall on North Avenue in Dunellen by contacting the Dunellen Office of Emergency Management. C, at OEM booths at Dunellen community events. D, via the health app's medical ID feature on the iPhone. E, by downloading the All About Me document posted in the chat currently. Or F, all of the above. And I think you'll agree that the answer is probably F, all of the above. So that concludes our very challenging pop quiz portion of our session. And now we'd like to open it up for questions and answers. So feel free, if you do have any questions and you'd like to unmute your lines to ask them directly. Chief Best is here to respond and your questions, and we're also around to support you as well. You may submit your questions via the chat if you're a little shy and not inclined to speak up directly, but we'll give you an opportunity to do that. And in the event, not seeing any, let's take a look. Let's see what we may have.
In the meantime, I have a question for the chief. Is when you enter a home, is there a preferred place where you would like to be able to go and find this piece of paper?
There's nothing particularly that, well, yeah, on the patient.
Okay.
With the patient.
Okay, all right.
In the old days, like I said, we would have it on the refrigerator and people would know how to look for that. That is unfortunately several generations back, and most medical responders these days don't even know that that program ever existed.
Okay.
So they don't know to look for it. You got to be an ancient relic like me and been doing this for way too many years.
Yeah. Well, I just, I'm thinking in terms of if I were in your position and I was running into a house, right? So I know if I'm a patient, I know where all my important papers are. They're in a locked box in my basement where you can't get to them, and I can't tell you where they are, right? So,
right.
So yes. So in my wallet would be
in your wallet, on your person, as close to you as you can. Often family members know exactly where everything is, and a family member will hand us the document, and that saves us a lot of time.
Okay.
Especially our regular patients, are people that we go to often who have some of the more severe medical problems. They've gotten to know this information, and they have it all handed right to us. Also, just so that people understand, when we first meet you, we are going to do an electronic chart on you. This is something that we do. It's our documentation of what happened on the call, and that information gets transmitted to the receiving hospital. It is in a state computer system that only our squad can see, and the receiving hospital can see it. Then, for a period of time, and unfortunately this seems to be random, it's the state system, it's not ours. If we have you again, we can get repeat patient information. So it might seem silly if we're going to you for a stubbed toe and we're asking you what your past medical history is. Part of that is building that information into our system so that if we need to, if we ever have you again as a patient, we can pull this up.
That sounds like a real positive for efficiency's sake.
The drawback there is when someone's medications change, oops, we have the old information.
I think that's an important point. Is there anybody else waiting? Like when I come back from a doctor visit, he may have, or she may have made an adjustment in my medications. So I should make sure that I now go to my All About Me and say, oh, guess what? I'm not on that anymore, or I'm on something new. So.
A lot of these handwritten sheets that people give us, they'll hand us that, and there's lines are crossed out, and margin notes are over here, and
Understand.
Your point about legibility.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Sounds like my to-do list, but yes. Yeah. So you've stimulated a lot of thoughts in me, and I may not have the right terminology, but like my parents had a document that gave instructions on their end of life wishes. Is there a particular name for that, and should that be kept with this?
Yes. That's a completely different subject, but people make their own medical decisions. We are going to honor your medical wishes. In order to treat you, in order to give medical care, we have to receive expressed consent. This means I have to ask you for permission to do anything. There's a couple of cases where that changes. The first one is in a minor. I don't need express consent from the minor. I need it from their parent or guardian. I need to get permission to treat that child. Now, hey, this gets very interesting when you're dealing with a 17-year-old who has their driver's license, is just driven over from California and gets in a motor vehicle accident. That's weird.
Yeah.
We've encountered a lot of strange things over the years. And the other condition is where we find you unresponsive. What happens there is a idea of the law called implied consent comes into play, where it is assumed legally that a reasonable human being who is in a severe medical emergency is going to want to be treated. And if you are unresponsive, if you cannot answer questions, or your altered mental status, which means you're not answering questions appropriately, you have no idea where you are, you have no idea what day it is, or you have no idea what your son's name is, there's obviously a medical problem here, and that's when implied consent kicks in and we can treat you. But everything else, we need express consent. That document that you're talking about, yes, that is express consent. What we can do, what we can't do. So those are very important, but that's a separate subject we could take all day talking about.
Yeah, and we probably don't want to take all day. It just occurred to me that I would put these two documents together so
Yes.
that you wouldn't have to be looking in two different places.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Those are great questions and even better responses. So thank you for that. And not seeing any indication that we have questions from our audience, I think we'll just go to closing for our session today. Our closing comments coming again from our very own Deputy Carlson.
Okay, it's Bill Carlson again, and thank you, Autumn. We've been listening, and we've been educated by Chief Jeff Best from our Denellen Rescue Squad, and we rely on our rescue squad. We rely on our fire department. We rely on our police department for many things, but we cannot push everything off on them. And Chief Best mentioned that during his presentation. each of us has a role in keeping ourselves safe, keeping our families safe, perhaps even keeping our neighbors safe. And what do we do for that? We keep learning. An example is I learned about the Apple phone app that I'm going to be putting into my phone as well. Keep learning, keep preparing, stay informed, and that's one of the reasons why we have these Safety Saturdays. And if you're so inclined, get involved. If you'd like to get involved, you can reach out to our office, and there are all kinds of ways that you can volunteer. We'll be having these Safety Saturdays every third Saturday. That's our plan, and they'll be at 10:30. And these are other ways to keep learning. Ready.gov, FEMA.gov. FEMA offers webinars, very, very interesting. They don't require any interaction. You can just listen to them. We have our websites and social media for our Office of Emergency Management and our social media as well. And for the weather, and weather is an important part of our safety. You can go to NOAA.gov, the national. Just had a brain freeze on that. Okay. And as you can see, these are some. This is ready.gov. It's a very nice website. You can see along the top there about different kinds of disasters and emergencies, how to make a plan, how to get involved. There is, believe me, if you're ever sitting at home saying, I have nothing to do, there's always something to do. There's always a way to learn. There's always a way to get more prepared.
If I can, one of the things that we've all heard about in the recent years is first responders. We've been talking about first responders over and over again. But one thing that we're taught on the first responder side is the actual first responder in any emergency or any disaster is the victim. That is the person that's there right from the start. And the more you know and the more that you can do for yourself, the better it is for you.
Great point. Great point. So keep preparing. Preparation is one of the key roles of the OEM. So make plans for your family, make plans for your pets, have a go bag. If you have to leave your house quickly, you want to be able to grab a bag with some clothing in it. The bag absolutely must have a copy of All About Me in it. It should have a few days worth of medications. You should also have a safety kit in your car. If you or a family member or a friend has special needs, I guess you register, sign up with Register Ready, right? Is how we would describe it, so that we know in advance that you have special needs and we can be more ready to respond to them. And pay attention to authorities, pay attention to public safety announcements, pay attention to warnings, pay attention to evacuation notices and things of that nature.
Perfect. And speaking of being able to pay attention to information, alerts, warnings, and notifications, this is how you can find information about OEM, about our educational and informational initiatives. And we're actually sharing our content regularly online on Facebook. You can also find us on Nextdoor, specifically with regards to general preparedness information and or emergency alerts. We've recently launched a YouTube channel where you will be able to access replays of these sessions in addition to additional types of content as well. So, and also another important point is in terms of emergency notifications, please do sign up for e-notify alerts on the Borough of Denellen website. You will be able to receive alerts about, notifications regarding activities in the town in general that are, not necessarily urgent in some cases, but timely. and you'll also be able to receive emergency alert information when that's appropriate. So thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. As both gentlemen have referenced, one of the opportunities is getting involved. So if you're interested at some point in joining this League of Trained Community Response team members, you're welcome to do that. As a team, they are, well, I don't know, I have them in my notes that they're not first responders, but they aid first responders. But based on your comments just a moment ago, it turns out we all are in some capacity. And there are other opportunities to serve and, in which you can volunteer on the team as well, in addition to or beyond the professional training that our CERT team members receive. So I'm Autumn Barbado. Again, please feel free to reach out to me either by phone or email here if you have any questions about these sessions, this topic today, or anything else regarding the Office of Emergency Management and the CERT teams. And then you are always able to reach out to Director Mosley, Deputy Carlson. Their information is referenced here. Other than that, thank you so much for your time today. And stay safe, although I think there's one more comment.
Just one more thing. If you enjoyed this, please tell your friends and neighbors. We have plenty of slots available for the next Safety Saturday.
Yes, please do invite your friends and neighbors. Thank you for the plug. I should also mention a couple of things. One, these sessions are recorded and available as replays, as I indicated, on our YouTube channel. I'll be reaching out to those of you who attended today with that information. And the other thing is, we'd love to get your feedback about how we might improve these sessions or how we might serve you better, just with regards to our efforts in the community. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Autumn. Thank you, Chief Best.
Thank you, Chief Best.